everyone. It's nice to see you all here today. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Adelina C. Santos Borja, who also goes by Lenny. She is the chairperson of the Southeast Asian Limnological Network, also called SEALNet, and she's the vice chairperson of the International Lake Environment Committee Foundation, which is called ILEC for short. She was previously the manager of the Resource Management and Development Department with Lake Laguna Development Authority in the Philippines, where she currently works as a consultant on integrated lake basin management. So we have the pleasure of hearing from Lenny today, although it will be a recorded presentation. So if you will just bear with me for a moment, I will get that going. And hold for a second, we will pull up Lenny's video. And thank you all for your patience.
Good evening from the Philippines.
Thank you, perfect.
I am Adelina Santos Borja, the chairperson of the Southeast Asian Limnological Network and one of the vice chairpersons of the ILEC Scientific Committee. I retired from the Laguna Lake Development Authority in 2020 after more than 4 decades of a very rewarding engagement. I am fortunate to be back to LLDA as a management consultant. It is my pleasure to share with you LLDA's programs and initiatives in Laguna Lake. Before going further, may I express my appreciation to ACARE, particularly to Stephanie, who initiated the invitation, and to Professor Walter Rust, my colleague at the International Lake Environment Committee Foundation, who recommended me in this activity. I am always fascinated by African lakes, and I was very fortunate to be involved in international projects that enabled me to participate in learning visits to some of the lakes like Lake Victoria and the Rift Valley Lakes, Nakuru, where the flamingos are amazing, Lake Naivasha, and Lake Baringo. Let me now take you to the Philippines and to the Laguna Bay or Laguna Lake region. Laguna Lake is located in the biggest island of the Philippines, which is the island of Luzon. This is Manila. And this is one of the biggest lakes in Southeast Asia and the largest lake in the Philippines at 900 square kilometers. The watershed area is almost 3 times the size of the lake. There are 24 sub-basins, but the lake has only one outlet, the Pasig River, which connects Laguna Lake to Manila Bay. When the lake level is lower than Manila Bay, there is a saltwater intrusion. So basically, Laguna Lake is not a freshwater lake. It is very shallow at 2.5 meters, and the retention time is around 8 months. There are 3 distinct bays, the West Bay, the Central Bay, and the East Bay. And the lake classification is Class C. This is in terms of their uses, and this is intended for fishery and other compatible uses. There are several political units in the watershed, and it's composed of 6 provinces, which includes Metro Manila. There are 29 lakeshore cities and towns, and there are 32 non-lakeshore cities and towns. The population as of 2015 is 16 million, which is 16% of the national population. Laguna Lake is eutrophic. It offers various environmental goods and services. At present, the most dominant use is for fishery. The development pressure in the watershed is alarming. In a span of 7 years, there was a rapid increase of urban and industrial areas, and it continues to the present. There is a specific institution on the management of the lake basin, which is the Laguna Lake Development Authority. So far, it is the only lake basin management authority in the Philippines and was created through a national law in 1966, which is Republic Act 4850, which was amended through the years. It is a semi-government corporation which commenced its operation in 1969. Among the major powers and functions of the LLDA is, of course, the main mandate is to protect and develop the Laguna de Bay region with regard to the environment. It promulgates rules and regulations with quasi-judicial functions. And the general manager is appointed by the president of the Philippines. So every time there's a change in the president, it's expected that there will be a change in the general manager of LLDA. The board of directors evaluates and approves the policy recommendations from the various units. There are three main departments in LLDA, which is in charge of environmental regulation, resource management and development, as well as management services. The office of the general manager is supported by a legal and adjudication division and the policy, planning, and information management division. A special office was created to focus on shoreland concerns and directly assisting the manager, of course, is the assistant general manager. In 2004, the Clean Water Act was passed into law, and it specifies the designation of a water quality management area. Laguna Lake is the first water quality management area, and also according to the law, it must be governed by a water quality management board. So in compliance, the LLDA created a WACMA, or Water Quality Management Area Board, which is basically composed of the LLDA Board of Directors, the representatives from the water utilities sector, and from the civil society. The Laguna Lake Development Authority is guided by the Integrated Lake Basin Management approach, which was developed by ILEC with a team of international experts. This was based on the experiences and lessons learned in lake basin management of 28 lakes from various continents. In Africa, the case study lakes were Baringo, Chad, Kariba, Malawi, Nyasa, Naivasha, Nakuru, Tanganyika, and Victoria. In the interest of time, I will present just the three major programs of LLDA, which are on water quality management and environmental regulation, resource use and development, and stakeholder engagement. Part of the, or a key component of water quality management and the environmental program is the regular monitoring of the lake and the tributary rivers, as well as the effluent discharge from point sources of pollution. The analysis is done at the LLDA laboratory. Likewise, the LLDA issues the following regulatory instruments, such as a development clearance. This is for new business establishments or firms. Also, a discharge permit is required for a industrial establishment or business to operate in the basin, especially, of course, this is focused on those with effluent discharge. And a component of this is the environmental user fee system. The EUF is often misconstrued as a license to pollute, which is definitely not. The legal aspect is very much in place wherein a polluting firm can face a lawsuit. Non-compliance will result to the issuance by the LLDA of a cease and desist order to operate the facility to prevent wastewater discharge. Due process is, of course, observed. The CDO can be lifted after compliance with the effluent standards and other legal measures. Aquaculture is the main industry in the lake, and Of course, the LLDA has to regulate this activity to avoid any conflict also with the traditional users of the lake, which are the fishermen, which are involved in capture fisheries. The management measure for aquaculture regulation is called the Zoning and Management Plan, or ZOMAP. And this was first implemented in 1983. It was revised in 1996, then in 1999, and the latest revision was 2019. And these are the salient features. The total area allocation for aquaculture is 9,200 hectares. And this is based on the carrying capacity of the lake. Of course, the inputs of experts from the academe, other government agencies, NGOs, fish pen and fish pen owners, and fish cage owners were taken into account. For the 2019 ZOMAP, 60% of the area is allotted to fishermen and 40% is allotted to businessmen. The maximum area for a corporation is 20 hectares. Before, it's 50 hectares. So the details of these, the implementing rules and regulations are contained in a approved board resolution by the LLDA Board of Directors. The LLDA share this resource user fees. For example, in the fish pen fee, which is around $120 per hectare per year, and the fish cage fee, which is around $84 per hectare per year, they are being shared in the following scheme. 60% of it is retained by LLDA for its operation. 5% is earmarked for a project development fund, which even the fishermen can access if they have some projects or even some cleanup of the lake. 25% is shared to the lakeshore cities and towns. 5% is shared to the barangay, which is, or the village, which is the smallest political unit, and 5% to the province, which, as I mentioned before, it also includes Metro Manila. So all of these funds are were shared with the intention that the local government units will use it for their environment-related activities. Another source of fund that is being shared by LLDA is the variable fee from the environmental user fee. Well, I will not expound on the computations, but this variable fee is being collected and kept in a separate account. It's called the Water Quality Management Fund by the LLDA. This is specifically allocated for water quality improvement projects of the Watershed Management Council, which I will mention later, or for studies, any studies related to water quality. Stakeholder participation is institutionalized in LLDA. In fact, there is a board resolution specific for this kind of participation. And this was made possible to the creation of a multi-stakeholder watershed management council in each of the 24 sub-basins wherein water quality improvement is the major objective. The membership of the local government officials, especially at the barangay level or village level, is crucial, and this is particularly emphasized by the governing board for water quality. Just some examples of a very meaningful stakeholder participation is the output and outcome of a project funded by the Japanese government, which we did in one of the watersheds or sub-basin, the Santa Rosa sub-basin, wherein the women who has very little appreciation of what's in the river in terms of their ecological importance were involved in the project. They were trained to collect the benthic flora and fauna. They were taught how to identify using certain keys or pictures. And they were taught that some of these animals are indicators of clean water and polluted water. And they are so excited that there are many animals that represent clean water in their area. through these efforts and the constant engagement of the women, this led to the creation of a village organization. Basically, it started as a women's group, which is in English, it's called the Partnership for the Advancement of Awareness and Respect for Malindig River of Carmen. This is Malindig River, and the source is Malindig Spring. So from this group of women, a leader emerged, and I have seen her transformation. She is the president of S. Carmen, and in 2019, she was invited at the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature in Japan, where she presented the organization and their activities, as well as their future plans. And one of the key lessons we have in engaging with the village is it's very necessary for scientists, for research project staff to embrace the culture and tradition of the community, so there's a feeling of belongingness with them. The LLDA maintains and sustains strong partnership and collaboration with local and international organizations, research institutions, the academe, civil society organizations, and the private sector. It has attracted many researchers who have contributed very valuable and relevant information in understanding better the dynamics of Laguna Lake and the dynamics of lake basin management. So just to present to you the most recent studies that were completed and funded by the Department of Science and Technology is the determination of the heavy metals in fish, the extent of contamination and health risk assessment, the emerging pollutants like endocrine disruptors, antibiotics, as well as the heavy metals in the waters of the lake, microbial source tracking in the lake and the watershed, which is a breakthrough. Now we are informed if the coliforms come from humans, swine, cows, poultry, and these are very necessary in environmental regulation. Aside from the technical reports and publications, the researchers are also obliged to prepare a policy brief. By the way, this study, which is on remote sensing and related to water quality, became very, very important during the pandemic, because we cannot go out in the field to collect samples and monitor the lake, and through our collaboration with the University of the Philippines, we were able to get some data. As I mentioned, policy briefs are essential. The researchers are obliged to prepare these aside from the technical reports. And the LLDA is a strong advocate of demand-driven research. We inform the concerned institutions what we need to support the policies, and we have a very strong advocacy with the research funding agencies like the Department of Science and Technology. So with that, I hope I was able to contribute something which you may want to see if these are applicable in the African Great Lakes. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best, more of acre activities and advocacies. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for this presentation. That is wonderful to see the different practices that you have in place. And as far as I know, we do have Lenny with us today. So if there are some questions for Lenny, we can put them in the chat, and I think she would be happy to answer a few questions before we move on to our next presenter. I really appreciated what you said about the stakeholder engagement and explaining the process for that. That was really interesting to see how that's been moving ahead and the successes that you've seen with some of the leaders in that. So thank you for that. Lenny, if you're here and you want to take yourself off mute and just say a word or two, we'd love to hear from you. I saw your name earlier, so I think you are here. Just want to make sure you can have a minute to greet everyone. And we really appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much. Lenny, are you able to take yourself off mute?
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, it's nice to finally connect. I hope this will continue. And my apologies for not giving the actual presentation. But yeah, I'm very pleased to share with you. And as I said, I'm very much encouraged or fascinated by African Great Lakes. And Lake Victoria is also amazing, and I love Lake Nakuru, and all the experiences of the people. The NGOs are very, very active.
That's great to hear that there's mutual connection. And Lenny and I connected through a mutual friend who said thought Lenny would be perfect to share some of this work, to be able to exchange across cultures some of the successful things that you've been working on. So thank you for that. I don't see any questions in the chat for Lenny at this time. Lenny, if there's anything else you'd like to add, I think what we'll do is continue to monitor the chat and see if there are any questions. You did get a compliment here about how inspiring your work is, so that's great. All right, we have one question. Looks like we'll take one question and then continue moving on. Jared, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the good presentation. I'm Jared Agano from Kenya. I just wanted to, if you could kindly share your experience with us. Experience with the cage culture. We know that the other people who use the same water body for other purposes. How significant is zoning of the lake in terms of demarcation for the water body for the different users? Would you maybe give your comment on that? You may not be maybe doing it,
Okay,
but how important is it, zoning? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, the zoning is not specific, like a particular area in the lake is just zoned for aquaculture. If you will see in the layout plan, the areas where aquaculture can be practiced is like all throughout the lake, but there are very, very important specifics on that. In the map, you just see all those squares and the rectangles. But actually, when you go to the details of the map, there are areas where the fishermen can pass through. It's called the navigational lanes, and the location of the fish pen zones and the fish cage zones were actually also based on practice, because those are the productive areas of the lake. Those are the areas where the lake bed is suited to put all those bamboo stakes or palm stakes to enclose the fish structure. But the implementation is very, very challenging, especially during the first time. And one thing that was good is when we implemented it, for example, in 1996, there were a lot of opposition. But later on, even the businessmen, the owners of the aquaculture structures or the fish pens, later saw the positive effect, because there's less crowding, and now it's assumed that there is lesser competition for natural food, because the use of artificial feed is not allowed in Laguna Lake. So aquaculture was introduced based on the premise that the natural food of the lake can sustain aquaculture. The big challenge really is on how to determine the carrying capacity. We develop our own methodology, but just 3 weeks ago, we have a conference specific for tropical lakes in Southeast Asia. And this is also my call to action, that there are many lakes in Southeast Asia that are being used for aquaculture, and perhaps it would be better if we can formulate some sort of a protocol or a procedure that can be adopted in the lakes in Southeast Asia to determine the carrying capacity. So this is an open invitation for collaboration, and we're trying to work it out with colleagues in Southeast Asia.
Wonderful. Thank you for this. Really appreciate the call to action and the offer to continue discussion and collaboration.